Hello and welcome to the Now Page update for February 2023. I'm Dustin Miller, PolyInnovator. This is the channel TeleInnovator, and I hope you are all here to just see what's new in my life and hopefully can maybe leave a comment and just talk about it and maybe give me ideas. Not that I really need many more ideas right now, and I'll get to that in a moment. But it's really exciting this year because this is one of the few years where juggling is the optimal route. And now, what I mean by that is I'm referencing a couple posts I've made over the past couple months where I talk about juggling, like interleaving your stuff versus serialized focused, like multi-focus over the course of time, whereas there's like a horizontal and a vertical. Vertical meaning specialty, horizontal with meaning variety of skills. And so when you are trying to do a variety of skills at a deep level, you have to build them up slowly over time unless you are focusing on one at a time. Both pathways are viable. In some years, you want to focus on one big skill and a tiny little skill next to it. Other years, you might have two medium skills or something like that. And this year happens to be one of the years where I have four little ones at a time. Now, you might think that doing four at once is going to make me not make much progress each of them, but a lot of them are going to overlap quite a bit. And on top of that, I've already been sowing the seeds for the last few years, which is why I had to do so many at once. Between my own trajectory in my head of where I wanted to be and needed to be at certain points in the past 5 or 6 years, being behind where I projected myself to be, and then on top of that, the COVID quarantine pushing everybody back and their own internal time schedules, and then the whole global schedule too on top of that. Like, that's still a few years back. We're still recovering from that time-wise. And ironically, I spent those years doing something pretty productive, and I'm really happy I did the interviews. And honestly, don't know if there could have been a better way for me to spend that time. But maybe making a fitness app or something like that. But other than that, I really can't think of anything else. And so, but that also means that everything else had to get put on hold for the 2 years or so that I was working on all that. And because of that, I still have to kind of catch up on some of the interviews, make sure I finish the 5th season on a good note, but also I need to get started on all this other stuff. So what am I working on right now? Well, I created my own game series, and it's called Phase VLOG. It's about these creatures that come through phase rips into our world, maybe not our world, but our world in the game. And you collect these creatures using these capture crystals. It's really cool. It's obviously very Pokemon-like, but that's because I grew up with that series and I love it. And I've had a lot of great ideas for that game series that I could never really do because Nintendo's not going to hire me, at least not anytime soon. And there's a lot of ROM hacks out there, and I thought about making my own. I even had my own fake decks created for quite a while to do so. But I never got around to doing that, and I still didn't like having to use Pokemon's engine in order to make that game. That's what all these ROM hacks do. They either use Pokemon Essentials, which is RPG Maker, or they use the actual ROMs themselves and hack into those ROMs to add their own assets, which is honestly a very brilliant way of doing that, but it's not necessarily the most legal terms, and so Nintendo likes to cut those projects down. There's a lot of really great Monstertainment games coming out at the same time, so I think this competition is probably going to keep people's interest peaked, and so I'll actually be able to slip in pretty well. And I've come up with some amazing concepts, and guess what? I used AI to do it. I've always been a very creative type, but fleshing out those ideas is not something that you can do very easily. You have to spend a lot of effort and mental time to focus on fleshing out ideas. So I use ChatGPT to help me do so, help me come up with the dungeons, the quests, the people, the ideas, the different typings. I created my own typing system as well. And so I've been very productive. I created the world map, the region, and the world beyond that too a little bit. Still need to finish that part though. I've been working on the actual base sprites, so that way I can have a base for all the different characters that I can add their, faces and hats and shirts to. I've also been working on the actual list of creatures, and so I've been using around half a dozen AI image generation tools to create design concepts for all these different creatures. I even created way more than I needed to, but it was kind of fun, to be honest. And so I spent the entirety of last month doing basically that. That's not to say that Phase VLOG was the only thing I was working on, but it was definitely my main endeavor because I just got obsessed with it. And when I get that hyperfixation feeling, which doesn't happen very often, I wanted to make sure I indulged it. And I'm glad I did because I think now I can actually work on that as kind of a side project all throughout the year. I have no goals on when to get this thing out. And so it doesn't really matter if it takes me this year or maybe 3 years. I just want to get it out at some point. And I found that Godot, a game engine, was more preferable. And I'll quickly move on to the next one after this, but I just want to explain this concept a little bit more. Because the game engine itself seems to be the best option when it comes to being open source, the whole monetization aspect. And on top of that, ironically, despite the fact Unity being out for way longer and there's a lot of other tools like Game Maker Studio, there are more examples of people making Pokemon clones in Godot than there are any other tool combined, which is insane to me. So like Unreal and then Unity, Game Maker, and even a couple other ones like Love 2D. There's 4 different other engines that I can list off right there. There are more examples in Godot than there are all 4 of those other ones combined, and the examples are way more fleshed out as well. There's some actually that are almost probably like basic formats of the game. I just had to expand upon them. And so I was thinking if I could find a way, because they're all open source, if I could find a way to combine all the different various parts, that if one thing's missing one thing, the other thing has that, I can combine those together in order to formulate the actual game itself. There's some differences between Phase Evos and Pokemon that I'll have to account for, like party size or the world itself, the variations, etc. But I wanted to really expand my programming prowess, and I think I can. I started getting the idea behind GScript, finally learning a programming language. I'm going to move on, though, because there's a lot more to talk about, and I don't want this video being too long. I started my gaming channel, and that is really cool. I haven't posted anything just yet as of the recording of this video, but I have like a dozen gaming videos I wanted to post on there, some of which aren't really the greatest like quality. I'm not sitting there talking to you like I am like this as well. I was still learning. Like they're basically prior examples of me streaming. I was trying to that was like over the past few years, I've tried streaming a few times. I recorded the videos. I didn't do the greatest job. My computer was also having some technical issues at some point where actually at the beginning of my interview process in 2020, I had to have a whole computer reset because of how many issues I was having with the video driver. And some of those issues pop up in the recordings for the gaming stuff. But out of all these years of creating content, I also have been making clips, and I've collected almost 200 clips at this point, which is an insane amount to think about. And I spent all day yesterday converting those from horizontal format to vertical format so I could post it on Shorts, Reels, and TikTok. And while TikTok is kind of an aggregator for me, I don't mind posting everything to that. I don't want to make a separate TikTok. I did make a separate Instagram and YouTube for PolyInnovator Gaming, as well as its own website, which you can find all 3 on the website link in the blog post below. Go check out the blog post version of this now page update, and then in that post, I have linked to the thing, to my site. And I'm really excited about that because that's one of my side projects I've been wanting to work on. It's actually the first secondary YouTube channel I've made. I don't really count the United Living Constructs. I didn't really make any videos on that channel. Whereas I'm actively making videos for this. I've already recorded my first season for State of Decay 2, which is the first game I wanted to create content around because it's what I've been most obsessed with lately. And I think it's really interesting too because the way I did it was kind of unique. It was just one of its own little things, and it's a little bit in the middle range, whereas one of the creators in that market is 30 minutes long per episode, and I don't necessarily care for how he does it per se. I love Get Good Fox, love him to death, but the way he does his episodes weren't really always the greatest for me. They were kind of doing too many things at once in a short time span, whereas the other creator does like 4-hour long videos, and they're too long for me. I make about an hour long, and that's it. And so it's kind of like in that middle ground. I think that I might be able to fit a little niche right there. And then beyond that, I have a whole list of games on that website you can check out, the ones I'm going to focus on. Next one's going to be Breath of the Wild because the sequel's coming out here soon, and I wanted to kind of get both of those games on that channel. It's a variety channel, the generalist gamer, if you will, and I wanted to approach that mindset behind that. So in the whole PolyInnovator content ecosystem, I have gaming, I have the Polycast, I have my content repurposing newsletter, which that too is also getting a huge event this year, and that's the reviews of all these content repurposing tools. I actually spent a whole bunch of time this week working with some of these tools because I was doing content repurposing, and I desperately need to repurpose the Polycast interviews still. I still haven't gotten around to doing that. I'm sorry to all the guests on there. I know I've been saying to do it years. I promise I will. I may not do the blog posts as of yet, but I am focusing on doing the clips because those are the most important right now anyways. And so I want to get those clips done and get those out there. So if I'm posting, I don't know how many Polycast clips a day, but probably around 3, if not 2, on my PolyInnovator Instagram, as well as the TikTok, and then the PolyInnovator TeleInnovator YouTube channel. And then on top of that, posting about 3 gaming videos on the PolyInnovator Gaming YouTube, the PolyInnovator Gaming Instagram, and then the just PolyInnovator TikTok. I'll be posting a lot of videos per day, And I really like that concept. I have all this content built up. Now I can finally execute on the strategy that I've been talking about for years. Partially, I should have been doing it more minor batches. But for me, I just had so much going on, I couldn't do the minor batches. I was just collecting a whole bunch of content, and I was going to do a sprint afterwards, even if that sprint was a year-long sprint. And so I have all that content built out. I just have to get it scheduled and going out there. And I'm just super stoked about it. You can see it in my mannerisms right now. I'm super excited about it. And I even have this idea. I've been using videobolt.net for a long time. They have a lot of intros and outros on there, as well as like some transitions, all kinds of cool stuff. They have this glitch style, and a lot of videos under that style now too, especially since it's been so long. And I wanted to create a glitch style intro for my Polycast, a glitch style intro for the PolyInnovator Gaming, and for PolyInnovator. Like each one has its own different intro because I want to have their own series, if you will. But then even the TikToks are going to have the little outro with the glitch style. And so with my audio logo on top of that, so everything is going to have that cohesive branding, especially audio and video branding. And so I'm super excited about that part too, because something about the audio branding and just the creative side of the branding, I've always been really fascinated by. And I don't think enough creators spend enough time on that. Speaking of time, I have a lot of Poly and content episodes to make, and it's been really weird. I've noticed over the last 5 episodes, I've been jumping around a little bit. Part of that's even because I've actually taken some Poly and content ideas and transferred them just for PolyInnovator or the Omniblog, or even just some of them were actually straight to PolyInnovator Gaming newsletter, because it's more for that, the Poly and Gamer newsletter, whatever I'm going to end up calling it. And that's also on a separate platform, which is weird because the other 2 times that I tried doing a separate platform for a newsletter, I ended up just merging it with my main site, but I don't think that's going to be the case this time. I really like Paragraph, more than Beehive, more than Substack, and on top of that too, PolyInnovator Gaming is its own thing. It needs its own website, whereas How to Swim, content repurposing, that was still all part of my ethos and my ecosystem. PolyInnovator Gaming is part of that ecosystem, but it's more of a separation. It's more isolated. Other than that, I'm still doing a weekly newsletter for the How to Swim newsletter, and also the content repurposing newsletter, which I'm super excited about. I just get the swimming lesson 1 today, and that was my 400th blog post, at least on this site. And that's just crazy to me to think about. 400. And so it's one of those things where at this point, I'm just pretty stoked that I'm only about a fourth of the way through all the content ideas that I have, but I'm super happy that I've made it this far, and I have a lot more to offer, more to give, including my How to Swim book, which is coming out later this year around May. So look forward to that. Please leave a comment. By the way, these tattoos are fake. Please leave a comment about what you're most excited about. There's a lot of different things going on. Let me know what you think about the whole divergent content creating series that I'm doing, because I know some people don't like the whole multidisciplinary content creator kind of concept. They're like, oh, you should focus on one niche or focus on one thing. But I literally can't. I've been building these out. I have a reason to build all these out at this time too. Each one has their own reason. Maybe I'll explain it to you another day, but please leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Bye. Cheers.
Dustin Miller, PolyInnovator.